Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Movies by McManus podcast. The podcast where we break down movies, comics, TV, books, whatever type of media you're into, in the context of who created it and what effect it's trying to have on the world. You know what we're about by now. You probably watched a few of these if you
already know what it is.
You know what it's about. You know my name is Greg. You know I'm with my brother Mike. I'm wearing my Montclair State University sweatshirt, which is where I went to film school.
And the world is currently ending.
And the world is currently ending. So maybe before I even talk about the movies, it's kind of like a weird day to be talking about movies because we kind of shoot these and then we release them a couple of weeks later. But you'll all remember what day this is. It's when the alt-right militia of the Proud Boys stormed the Capitol building. And I don't know if by the time you're watching this, democracy might be over. But movies will still be here.
Biden will be the president.
Biden will be, No, I'm being overly pessimistic, which is going to be a theme of one of the movies.
I don't know. I mean, might be, just the right amount of pessimism for what we saw today. But
today was bizarre. It's a bizarre day to be talking. I was on the drive home here. I was on the drive from work to here, and I was like, it's gonna be really weird talking about movies right now.
Well,
we just literally watched.
Well, it's kind of like I listen to a lot of sports talk radio, and especially back in the day, after 9/11 or something, it was just like, whenever some big event happens, it reminds you that, all right, and now we're going to have pretend time. We're going to have playtime. It kind of, this is all playtime.
Exactly.
So is sports. But I think, it would have been kind of inappropriate to not, address the fact that, it is kind of ridiculous that we're going to talk about two pieces of fiction when, this was the first time since the War of 1812 the Capitol building was stormed.
Yeah, no, it was. It was so bizarre seeing pictures of just I mean, we should call them terrorists. That's what they were.
It's not even controversial.
Right, it's not. That's what they were.
Government building.
They were terrorists, and you saw them up with on the podium where the Speaker of the House normally is. They stormed into congressmen and congresswomen's offices, stole classified documents.
It was by far the craziest fucking thing we've ever seen.
So
outside of 9/11, that was the craziest shit I've ever seen.
So they were there to basically steal the elector ballots.
Yeah, I don't know if they're that smart.
I don't know either, but that's what people were claiming.
People did get them out of there though, so
that was the first thing they made sure to get out because they thought that was probably
not
the target.
That's smart, but I don't know that they were even that organized.
Well, it's we know what the count is.
Well, 95% of the people you could tell were just kind of sheepishly following. One woman, I got to be honest. And I don't have much sympathy for these people, if any.
I have zero sympathy.
Well, I mean, a woman died.
Oh,
and you know what? That sucks.
Fine.
Because for her poor soul, and I'm sure, well, I'm not sure of anything, but she was dumb enough to be there in the first place. But what led this poor woman to give her fucking life for what? What did she give her life for?
Donald Trump does not care about these people.
That's what I'm saying. You gave your life for what? To you know what I mean? When she woke up this morning, she did not think she was giving her life.
For nothing.
And you're dead now because of this stupid bullshit.
For nothing, because you know what? And this isn't me being optimistic or whatever. This isn't Joe Biden's going to be the president.
Well, that's the thing. It's
not changing anything.
What were you going to do? You're going to go in there and kill every member of the government until you what was your end game?
I don't know.
And shame on the police for not coming down on them harder. First of all, how do you?
Yes, 100%. And that's what I was thinking. How are you not prepared
for that? How are you not prepared for that? But then the real pessimism
They've been starting brawls with the police all week.
Yeah, I know. Guys. And it doesn't have to be said. Look at as many examples if you want of them cracking down on protesters when it's a Black Lives Matter rally or anything else. and that doesn't fit their agenda. And there's videos of the police letting these people in. I'm not saying all the police are doing that, and I don't think that's fair either, because I've been seeing a lot of shit. Like, I saw plenty of videos.
I don't think it's fair
where
because
police were being chased. Like, you know what? These are fucking people too, man.
There were a few officers who were letting people in, though.
Absolutely,
100%. There's video of it. There were also a lot of officers there who were doing their job and who were protecting the Capitol building.
And that's because, like, we like to throw around narratives about the police on both sides, like, oh, they're fucking perfect angels, which we know is not true, and that they're just literal Nazis, which is also not true.
Yeah.
And if you have zero experience with police, maybe you could be duped into either of those camps, but it doesn't work when you actually know real police officers, like I do, because of my former employment, which was, you know, basically dealing with police all the time in the service industry, but they were constantly around. They're regular people. And now, do they have PTSD? Do they lean conservative? Yeah. But, you know, I don't think that's fucking cool either. And I saw plenty of videos that were really disturbing on like, but the problem is there are some people that
the video of one of the the videos of them letting them into the Capitol building. That's what something's got to understand. They didn't storm shit. They were let in.
Well, I haven't seen this. It's probably too early, and maybe by the time this comes out, we'll really know what percentage of the people were just let in. Like, in other words, was that a group of people? Was that the entire procession, or was that a group of people? Like, do we know how they? And
there was one guy who was taking a selfie with an officer.
I saw that. Yeah.
That unacceptable, no matter what.
Well, listen. I mean, there's a video of a cop in Boston who's freely admitting running people over. There's know the mafia cops. There's tons of examples. The problem is they're people, so they have their own thoughts and their own beliefs and their own political beliefs. So it's just, I don't know. It's today was just disturbing in every way, shape, or form. It's too early. I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe it was a 100% they were all let through by police.
Yeah, no,
obviously some of them were.
Well, no, it wasn't 100% because you also saw that there was some resistance, and you saw that there was some SWAT team members who were, and there were some of the rioters on the grounds and handcuffed in the Capitol building, and you saw people protect, with guns drawn, security people. So it's
hard to say.
We're also talking about this like 2 hours after it happened.
Exactly. I'm sure there'll be a ton of revelations.
Yeah.
One thing that a lot of people have pointed out, and just from the optics, it's really hard to go against this, in my opinion, that they just don't seem to have been as violent as they are towards Black Lives Matter protesters.
100%.
And this is not a protest. Yeah. This was, like we said, this is domestic terrorism.
No.
I'm sorry. There's no other. I'm not actually sorry, but there's no other way to say it when you're fucking storming a government building. And
well, they weren't.
If these people were black or Muslim, how would they have been? Would they have been given that long of a leash?
100%. They would have all been tear gassed.
Right.
They were on top of the Capitol building, and I was just thinking, like, why are they not being tear gassed?
And this is the problem. Like, we're not condoning violence.
It can't be like, not that I'm, pro tear gassing people,
right? Exactly.
But you can't use the excuse of we can't use tear gas because there are, reporters or staffers that might get injured there. Well, there were reporters and there were regular people around the Black Lives Matter people that you tear gassed.
And just from a fucking, I know it's not entirely related, but for someone to be killed during a traffic stop with no weapon on them. And then versus someone walking in armed, intruding into a government building, and they're able to go home tonight to their family. How do you justify that?
You can't. I'm glad we got all this out of the way first, because I was worried we were going to be talking about Palm Springs, and then it's going to be constantly coming up. I'm sure it's going to come up again because, this is a huge event. By the time this comes out, it will probably still be fresh in everybody's memory.
I can't think of a crazier thing, and this is counting, where we're from on the East Coast, Hurricane Sandy, the COVID-19 pandemic. To me, this is at least from a United States standpoint, which is where we've been our whole lives. I can't. This to me is up there with 9/11 as far as just pure insanity. I never thought
this is. I kind of had this thought. I'm going to bring this back to last week. The episode before this was Capone. You have these institutions that you feel are untouchable.
Right.
You feel like Congress, or just like the Chamber of Congress, is such like an untouchable American institution. And it reminded me of the scene in the movie The Untouchables with Robert De Niro as Al Capone, when you have Elliot Ness and his group was called the Untouchables because the point was that they were these like incorruptible cops who, like, any problem they could solve it. And one
like
of
Vanilla Ice?
Like Vanilla Ice?
Yeah, if
you got a problem, I'll solve it.
Who had Vanilla Ice coming up as a reference that close to talking about today's
We
events?
haven't even said the names of the two movies, and we brought up Vanilla Ice.
What's the over-under on Vanilla Ice's name coming up? Well, I guess it's not that insane because he just performed.
This is our 17th episode, and it's the first time Vanilla Ice has come up, so 1 out of 17. Okay. Anyway, so one of the like untouchable cops is Sean Connery, and basically Al Capone's men come to Sean Connery's house and they murder him, and they write kind of on blood on the wall above his body, touchable. And that scene is kind of how I felt today, of like, you have this American institution, the Chamber of Congress, and then you have rioters running into it, and it's kind of like touchable.
Well, and here's the part that's scary is like, and I don't know that I'm going to make this leap yet. People are already making this leap, but they're saying like, okay, why was it that people could literally just walk into, or be, some people were let in, but let's be honest, people got into a government building, the Capitol, without much trouble whatsoever.
Yeah.
Was it a lack of preparedness and then, like, why were you so unprepared? Or was there more of, we saw some cops letting people in, was there something more nefarious going on within the Capitol Police, and the Trump regime, and, just that whole like, getting in bed together with...
It seems if you looked at the amount of brawls between the Proud Boys and the police in the days leading up to this, how could you not have seen this coming?
I mean, who saw them storming the Capitol building?
I didn't see them getting in.
I figured there'd be a degree of violence.
I 100% thought there was going to be violence. I 100% was expecting a riot to happen.
Yeah.
Like 100%, but like they weren't even prepared for a riot.
Well, that's my point. Is like, what's the reason for that? Is it just like, if it's just you weren't prepared, how could that be so?
Yeah. How could you not have seen this coming?
And then that plays into like, and you're seeing this all day on Twitter and social media, like the images of the cops like in straight up like fucking video game riot gear, like for the Black Lives Matter protests, standing on the Capitol building. Or standing on some government buildings. I don't know if it was exactly the Capitol, but the point is they were fucking standing there ready to go. And we didn't see any of that today. And it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for the argument against that there isn't some kind of cozy relationship between the far right and, law enforcement.
No, it definitely doesn't look good. No one leaves today looking good.
Well, and I was just talking
maybe Joe Biden.
I was talking to one of my oldest friends who did vote for Trump, and today was the last straw for him, and he said he needs to be removed, and he was saying that he thinks Mike Pence is actually considering, like, I don't know where he got it from, but the 25th Amendment, which I guess means you're unfit or whatever. I don't know too much about it because we haven't fucking needed to hear about it until we've had a psychopath in there. But
I've heard from a lot of people today, a lot of my friends who their parents were like big into Trump, who were like, yeah, this was the final straw.
Yeah. I know Twitter just, they didn't suspend his account, but they put a pause on him.
They put a pause on him.
Yeah.
Apparently there were 3 tweets that they kind of flagged
in a row, right?
As kind of like inciting violence.
For sure.
I don't know what the tweets exactly were because, you know, they're banned, obviously. But they were like, if you don't delete these, then your account's going to be, whatever.
And even that video that he put out, I guess someone got in his ear and was like, you have to say something.
I keep hearing about this video and I haven't seen it yet, so dude, I don't know.
It was in the heat of the fucking shit. It was like within the time frame it was going on. And he goes on video, and the first thing he says is like, we had a stolen election. Yeah. Everybody knows
Jesus
it.
Christ.
Like, he starts off with the stolen election routine.
Yeah.
And then he's like, but we have to be peaceful. You have to go home. But I do understand because it was a big fraud. Like, it was like 75% the election was stolen, 25%.
I did listen to his phone call with the guy from Georgia, and
I couldn't make it.
Comedy.
I couldn't make it through the whole thing. Just because he's such a
funniest thing. Hilarious.
He's just so bad at putting even thoughts together, though. That's like it's so rambling and meandering.
Yeah,
like,
but it was.
You know, we've seen, and I think you've seen it. A lot of people are seeing it, but I think you know that.
Is it
true
that what's the voting counting? It's something with a D. Dominion. Is it true that they were taking voting booths and taking them out of Georgia? And I was like, no, that's not true. Like, yes, but they were going in and they were taking the insides and they were taking them out of Georgia. And he was just like, no, that's not true either. And he's just like, well, that's not what I heard. It's peak comedy. It's the funniest thing. There's nothing.
It's funny until this happens. Well, no, but and also, by the way, today was like a big like privilege moment. Obviously the fact that like there's very good reason to believe that if these majority of these people were not white, it would have been dealt in a different way. 100%. But it was also like, here's the thing too. Like, oh, okay, now this is your final straw? Like, that's kind of revealing of a level of privilege, too. Like, I don't know, everything else, all the other fucked up shit wasn't going to affect you. But now you're bothered by the fucking optic.
The 3-year-olds in cages who were given tinfoil as blankets.
Right.
That didn't bother you?
Yeah, exactly.
The tear-gassing a priest in a church across from the White House.
I mean, that's kind of metal. That might be the one thing I could get down with. Just kidding.
All right. Well, a priest who's trying to get people into his church to escape the tear gas is tear gassed. I mean, how many...
Well, that's my point. Is like, oh, now, like, just because we don't do that in this country. It's like, now this is the final straw. I don't know why this person's from Long Island, but my point is...
We all know why she's from Long Island. All right,
should we do this?
Let's do this. How can we get a time check?
It doesn't matter.
Went on for like 15 minutes. All right, the first 15 minutes were dedicated to the insane shit that happened today.
Some current events.
Welcome to Movies by McManus, the podcast where we talk about movies, comics, you know the shit, whatever.
It just my final thought, and we're gonna get right into it. It does remind me. I keep going back to 9/11, but I remember I was in 7th grade. And like my teacher told us about Osama bin Laden like before 9/11 happened.
I barely remember 9/11. So I was very young when it happened.
But my point is, we were in 7th grade, and like I remember whatever the fucking lesson of the week was. It was only a Tuesday at 7-Eleven. 9/11 was a Tuesday. Yeah. But he just fucking took the whole thing and was like, fuck the lesson, and we just talked. And he actually talked to us like adults. And the point is, like, sometimes shit happens in life and you have to fucking address it, and it would be inappropriate for us to not do that today. Having said that, welcome to Movies.
Yeah, welcome
McManus.
to Movies. Well, it's just you think that there are certain things that are untouchable until one day somebody touches it.
Right. Just like you think, a virus can't fucking spread throughout the world. Just like it should be a wake up call. But I saw one tweet that was hilarious, and it was like, well, that escalated steadily for the last 4 years.
Billie Jean King just
Billie Jean peaced out.
I'll get it later. Oh, I had a Landau Calrissian I was going to bring in, and I forgot it at my apartment. Whatever. Right. That you got for me.
I did.
All right, we're talking about Palm Springs and Vivarium, two movies that have nothing to do with what we were just talking about.
Facts.
So Palm Springs, directed by Max Barbakow. It's starring Andy Samberg and Kristen Melanotny, who are Andy Samberg's, been hilarious forever since the days on SNL, his days with Lonely Island. This is one of like the first movies I saw with him where I was kind of taken back, where I was like, he's not only hysterical, he's also a great actor.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the deepest thing in the world.
No,
it's not like out of the, like, I didn't feel a big tremendous stretch from him.
No, but he has a role and he knocks it out of the park.
Sure.
I think it's knocked out of the park.
No, definitely.
Kristen Melanotny, who
Abraham Lincoln alert, by the way.
Abraham Lincoln alert?
Baberham Lincoln alert.
Oh, Baberham?
That shows the age difference. It's a Wayne's World reference.
Okay.
He was born when Wayne's World 2 came out.
Was the mother on How I Met Your Mother, which I know you never watched.
She was the mother on How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah. Have you ever seen that show?
No.
Okay. The entire show is you're leading up to the final episode where the main character, Ted, is finally going to meet the mom.
Okay. And
Kristen Melanotny plays the mom.
All right.
And she's also in Wolf of Wall Street. This movie, just to give you a brief summary, it's basically, your typical like Groundhog's Day, Bill Murray. They're in a time loop. They're living the same day over and over again, which a lot of people think is kind of a played out premise. I always kind of think that a premise is never really played out if you're adding something new to it. And I think
I agree.
This film 100% added something new to it. There's a TV show called Russian Doll, which is another like time loop, kind of living the same day over and over again, but also adds a very nice twist to it. So a lot of people, when I have suggested this movie, are like, it's Groundhog's Day again. Like, I don't do movies like that. And they should, because people, if you're going to add something new, if you're going to do just straight Groundhog Day, then that's not interesting. But you can always add something new to an old concept. And I think like this movie 100% does. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. It's definitely my favorite comedy of the year.
It's funny because two things. You had mentioned before we did this, I don't think you're going to like this one. I actually enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking, just because you're not like a big romantic comedy person.
Well, my other comment was going to be, this is the type of movie that used to like burn down the movie theaters, where
right.
and it doesn't really happen. Now it's more of a streaming thing,
no,
which obviously the pandemic happened, so that probably
yeah.
changed their plans anyway. But the point is, like, it used to be like Anchorman, Knocked Up, like those types of movies would just destroy the box office. And to my understanding, you would obviously know better. That's not the case anymore.
That's not really the case anymore. It's really hard to kind of make money on a comedy now. I mean, I think
I don't understand that, because wouldn't the budgets be much lower than an action movie? And you know what I mean? Like, why?
Not really.
Really?
You're getting one of these big comedy stars. Just getting the star is going to be a lot.
Sure. And you need a star to kind of.
You always need a star for a comedy if you're going to be in theaters. But there was, I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. It was like pretty much the only successful comedy of, I think, 2019 was this Seth Rogen produced Good Boys, which
never even heard of it.
Most people have it, but it's basically like it was done on a low enough budget that it was able to make its money.
Sure.
And it was Seth Rogen produced, but no one really famous in it. And it was really like one of the only successful comedies of last year. Comedy is something that a lot of these writers are going into television.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Palm Springs, I believe, was always meant to premiere on Hulu, even if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Right.
It was always going to be a Hulu release, but it was in Toronto Film Festival.
Hulu might have bought it outright. Like,
I'm not sure exactly the story behind it, but it might have just been it premiered at Toronto Film Festival and Hulu just bought it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Which is, always what happens. But anyway, it's a very good story of basically like the anxieties of settling down and getting married and trying to find happiness in that.
Well, to me, that's what the other film we're going to talk about. This one seems more about just like they're kind of starting off on a shitty, everyone's in a fucked up relationship in this one. I mean, the main relationship is a fucked up one.
Right.
The wedding that they're at.
Yes. Well, this is how my reading of the movie was basically living the same day over and over again is kind of the metaphor of settling down. Yeah. Of starting an adult life. And you have the two main characters who both of them are very childish. They're basically adult children who they drink too much. And for them, that's what's terrifying about becoming an adult is you're basically living the same day over and over again.
Yeah, and I could say, just as someone who's like in my 30s, that like it's funny because you do reach a point where you go like, no, being the man child is actually the nightmare.
Yeah.
Like where I know people, right. I know people that it's weird when it switches, like, right. But like you see people who do live like that and you're like, oh my God, like that's scary shit.
Well, it's the story of a man child who has to basically accept the fact that he's getting older and he has to settle down. And that nightmare of living the same day over and over again is actually, there's a lot of beauty and happiness with that. If you're with the right person. He's miserable before he meets Sarah, right? And then he finds happiness in it. And you see at the end, right before they leave, there's a sly line that like one of the older women at the wedding goes to Sarah, and it was just like, "Oh, we're gonna miss you now that you're leaving us," and basically like trying to hint at like there are more people who are kind of stuck in this time loop and they've found happiness in it. More like you're looking at the older people in your lives who've been married since forever, are living the same day over and over again, but they've learned to be happy with it.
Well, it's funny because like your goals kind of change, where it's like when you're a kid, like for me, I would always think of like marriage, it would seem like that, but then you realize that it's like, no, it's just about like having some kind of peace of mind, right, so that you could go and do the next moves. Like, you could worry about a career because you're not worried about all the chaos of your personal life. Do you know what I mean? Besides just having someone in your corner and stuff like that. Well, I know these are like super basic thoughts.
It is actually kind of an interesting way of our two different perspectives. So the director of this movie, Max Barbakow, he is your age. He's 31, so he probably wrote this. when he's my age.
I don't like people that are my age and more successmaul.
Well, you want to know, it's a little bit of a Josh Trank who we were talking about.
I'm just kidding. I don't really care.
Not that
AOC is 1 month younger than me, and that really bothers me.
Well, so Max Barbakow, he's 31, which this is his first feature directing. That's extremely young to be directing your first feature film.
What was that word there? You struggled
extremely
with that. There you go.
Young. His parents ran the Santa Barbara Film Festival, and
it's a coincidence.
And like we're high up in like the American Film Institute. So when you look at like, oh, he's very young, he's 31 for directing his first filming. Well,
that's life.
I mentioned that to Josh Trank, who also had started very young and had family in the industry, but Max Barbakow, I think, is much better as a director than Josh Trank is.
Right.
And so we have that movie, and then we have the other end of it, which is Vivarium, which Vivarium I do not like.
Okay, this is the first time you're actually telling me that.
Oh, yeah. No. I wanted to do these basically two drastically different approaches to the same movie. Not really the same movie, but the same metaphor.
Which
you're
is
trapped in it. One of them is finding happiness, and the other one is kind of wallowing in the sadness of it. I've watched both of these movies twice. Palm Springs, I liked better. The second time, Vivarium, I liked worse.
Well, this is a recurring theme for me, I feel like, throughout this. But again, this movie, Vivarium, it's another one where it's like you think it's deep when you're 18.
Right. No, exactly.
Right.
This movie is basically Tom and Gemma they're not newlyweds, they're just like a young couple, and they're looking at this house to buy, and then they get trapped in it. It's this housing complex that kind of goes on forever that you can't escape from. These mysterious demons or whoever drop off food for them.
They really stretch out this fucking concept.
They drop off a baby for them, and it's basically like the theme of what they're going for. I think it's like what you said, it would be deep if I was 18.
Yeah.
It's basically just like, well, how different is this from like the life you would normally live?
Yeah. It's so almost painfully like
it's painfully obvious what the theme of the movie is.
Yeah.
With Palm Springs, like that idea of just like, oh, living the same day over and over again. Oh, it's like being married and being an adult.
Right.
I had to like think about that for a bit, because Palm Springs, I think, is a much smarter movie disguised as kind of a silly goofball movie.
100%.
Vivarium is a dumb movie
Perfectly said.
Fucking, I cannot pronounce words today. It's because I'm so angry about the Trump thing. It's a dumb movie, basically under the guise of like trying to be really smart.
Yeah. And it's a little like, that would be a movie that would be tough for me to watch twice, because it would just like
the second time I watched it, I was just like, shit, I forgot how much I hated this.
And it's so fucking slow and drab. And
it's slow.
You know, it's the same concept. You watch like it's one set essentially.
Yeah. So the idea of it was another thing was like the second time I watched it, I was halfway through and I was like, I forgot how much screaming there is in this movie. Like every 5 seconds, people are like high pitched screaming.
The child
is screaming. I forgot how annoying this movie is.
Which he's a real kid, so I don't want to say anything about a kid, but like, yikes.
Yeah, they do make this kid weird.
Super fucking weird and super
weird.
Just like, you know, and even the adult version of him, like they cast that right. I got to give them that. They got these creepy people.
I don't dislike any of the performances. I think the girl, I'll mispronounce her name. She's an Irish
Imogen Poots.
Imogen Poots, I believe.
Isn't there a band called like Imogen something?
I don't know.
Emoji Heap? Yeah,
Maybe.
I think there is.
She's an actress who I've seen in a lot of things. She's kind of a big-time Irish actress. And she was in another movie with Jesse Eisenberg called The Art of Self-Defense, which I liked a lot better. She was in this like really intense movie called Green Room, which is like, it's another movie where it's kind of, there's one set, but they do it way better and they're able to get a lot more excitement out of it.
Right.
I like her a lot. I think that she's pretty good in this movie.
Yeah.
Like the movie itself,
The movie just stinks.
It's not good. I think her performance is good.
It is. It is.
I think
It doesn't save the movie. But
no, it doesn't.
No.
I think Jesse Eisenberg is fine.
That's a good way to say it. He's fine. He doesn't get, you know what? Like his demeanor, which is so plain and just one dimensional, kind of always, unless there's something
No, that's
it works for his role here.
That's kind of my view on Jesse Eisenberg just in general in pretty much every movie I've ever seen him in.
No fucking personality whatsoever.
Is passable.
Oh my god.
He's passable. Like none of his performances add anything to the movies he's in. They don't really take away. He kind of does. He goes there. He does his job. That's it. Which is better than most people acting are terrible.
I guess. I don't know. I just don't, sometimes I don't
think
get it,
in general, he's just fine. He's not a leading man. If they just like every movie he's in.
But he is, though. He gets cast as leads.
No, that's the thing. He always gets cast as the lead, but he's not does not have the charisma or the anything to carry a movie.
That's why it kind of almost worked in this one, because his character was just like this one mode the whole time.
His character also is like Gemma's the main character. Tom's the secondary character.
Yeah,
you're seeing it through Emoji Poots, her.
Yeah,
and her performance is much better.
Yeah.
So something about Vivarium, which like the movie that I think Lorcan Finnegan, who directed this, was going for, was kind of like talking about the being crushed by like the debt of a house you just bought that you can't really afford. I think there's a different movie you could have made here, because when I was looking up this movie, he kind of based it off of the early 2000s. There are a lot of these like big housing developments, kind of like the one in the movie, like around Dublin, that basically they were built and left abandoned. Is it supposed to
be in Ireland, this movie?
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be in Ireland.
They never make that clear or not clear.
Yeah, I mean, everybody besides Jesse Eisenberg kind of has an Irish accent.
Yeah, I guess.
But they made these giant housing developments and then kind of left them just like basically to go empty, because like people couldn't really afford to, the average person couldn't afford to live there. And it's about the housing crisis. It's about these super creepy housing developments that seem to go on forever, where everything is empty. And the anxiety of like a young couple, they just bought a house and they are being crushed by the debt of it. I think there's like a different movie there, because that's clearly what he's going for when he's talking about like the housing crisis in Ireland, but that's not really the movie that we get. The movie we get is kind of like this
college thesis,
this hipster, like, you're living your life wrong, man.
Exactly.
Take some water real quick.
And I don't know. What would you do differently then?
I don't know what I would do differently. I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna rewrite the entire movie, but they make it seem like it's the kid who's kind of draining their life force from them. Yeah,
which is another played out trope.
Which is another played out thing. when it should be more clear if you're going to do it about debt, that it's the house that's kind of draining it from him. Because it is at the end, it's a haunted house story. It's the same. It's the thesis of Amityville Horror. They just bought this house that they can't afford. The ghosts inside the house are a metaphor for the dead.
One thing I noticed, which is another, like, we've discussed this on the show previously, is that it seems to be following a couple of trends that I've noticed with new films, which is this whole idea of, like, the what was the Sorry to Bother You, or this whole, like, Trapped thing, or this whole, like, everything's the same, like, kind of take on Amazon, like an Amazonian, like, way of life mixed with, like, just, like, real
absurdity
and over the top violence.
Right. Yes.
It's almost like these guys, it feels like now, because I'm watching a lot of more of these new films than I normally would, because of the show. It does feel like there's almost like a game plan out there for these new directors. Yeah. That's the impression I've been kind of getting. Whether it's Sorry to Bother You or The Devil All the Time, like, not so much The Devil All the Time as far as theoretically, but just from the violent perspective. I don't know. Like, I'm seeing a lot of, like, Midsummer, like the fucking elderly person being thrown off the cliff, and then with this one, like the guy at the end being fucking put in the body bag, or all the body bag scenes. Like, it feels kind of like, I don't remember.
Even Spike Lee made a more violent movie than he ever has before. Yeah, about the over the top violence, I don't know. When you're talking about the, like, thematically, like, the everything's the same, I've noticed that, well, first of all, I think you're getting at, like, a lot of the anxiety that young people have is just, like, everything feels like a carbon copy now.
Which, that's,
Which,
that's
and I think that's why that comes forward in
it's
modern
like
day movies.
Art imitating life.
The absurdity, I feel like that's been kind of a trend for kind of a while now, of movies are less concerned with being realistic. In, like, maybe 2007, 8, 9, there was, like, a real realism trend of just, like, we're making all movies as realistic as possible. Like, even Batman was trying to be as realistic as possible.
Coincidentally, the best Batman films.
Coincidentally. And there's kind of been a move away from that, of we're getting sillier, we're getting more absurd in recent years. I really think that's more of just, like, it goes up and down. It goes kind of, maybe we're at the peak of absurdity right now, and it's going to go back to realism.
Right. And just the competition of there's so much shit that, like, and this is what the last film did, so let's be crazier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's also a problem, Vivarium has this and Palm Springs doesn't, of every director feels like their movie has to be deep. Of their movie has to have a deep message.
Which in turn makes it so not.
Yes.
Like, because you're overplaying that fucking hand, and it's just...
But when you're doing something like Palm Spring and you're not trying to be deep, it becomes more deep. By not trying to, like, have a deep message, you have a deeper message, because you just realize it's a subconscious thing. You can't. It's a subconscious thing of, basically, if you're not trying, it's always going to be. The message is always going to be stronger, because you're writing what feels natural. You know? You're talking about being deep. It has to come from deep inside you. Well, you're not. It's not coming deep inside with you if you're constantly thinking, just like, all right, what messages should I try to put in this? What you're going to write naturally.
He said coming deep inside of you.
Yeah. All right. Fine.
I'm not going to let you slide on that.
But if you're doing a movie like Palm Springs, where you're trying to okay, what's the worst situation I can put this guy in that's going to be really funny, you're naturally going to come up with like what your biggest anxiety is. And therefore you're going to hit a deeper nerve than someone who's just like, how can I make people cringe, man?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, or it's like, even just like trying to forge relationships and make shit happen in general. It's like if you try to fucking plan it out, it's never gonna be as magical a connection than one that develops organically.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a bit of a too far of a stretch, but I think it kind of like, essentially it's like if you're just being like centered and like being like honest in the process, like the results are going to reflect that, and people are going to appreciate that more, because sometimes you almost like, you think you have to outsmart people, and that's never going to happen, because people are really smart, and they're emotionally smart, and they're going to respond to something that feels truthful or feels like it's based in something about, or just feels like forced. And this feels totally and utterly forced. And
so I want to talk about just like how different the kind of endings of these two movies. Of Vivarium is extremely pessimistic. It has a sad ending. It has like a sad, tragic ending. And it's another thing with like when you're forcing a like fake deep movie, they always do this thing of like the darker ending is the more realistic or the more like thought-provoking ending, which is not really true.
Yeah.
You think that being dark and being depressing is more realistic, which isn't the case. Like realism,
it's not necessarily the case. Yeah, and I was convinced that Palm Springs was going to end with it not working out for that same reason.
Yeah,
sure, because I thought like, it's almost like how in the 80s or 90s, like 100% of the time everything works out perfectly.
Yeah.
Like I felt like, okay, obviously this is not going to end well, because that's what we're doing now.
Yeah,
like we're ending things in tragedy or over the top or nothing.
People think that they have to end in tragedy in order to be deep, and you don't.
Right.
Because first of all,
which is such a fucking sophomoric idea.
That's not how real life is. Like you think of like. I'm always going to think the worst is going to happen, and that makes me a realist. Well, not always. The worst doesn't always happen. Sometimes good things happen. And sometimes relationships work out. You're not being deep by saying that like, oh, all relationships are failures. 50% of marriages end in divorce, man.
Yeah, well, just to relate this to my industry, which is music, you see this all the time, and I just, I deal with my own insecurities about my ambitions in music, because when you are ambitious and you say that, you know what, maybe this could work out, you're putting your ass on the line, because it's way more embarrassing if it doesn't than if you're starting, or maybe embarrassing is not the right word, but if you make your intentions clear that you have goals and you're trying to do something, it's so much easier for the pessimist to be like, yeah, like it's the same hipster bullshit mentality, which is like you fuck it up before you could fail. When really you're being the coward. Like you're afraid to try, you're afraid to fucking do anything. So it's easier for you. So because you're afraid to fail, you're not even going to try.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know why that's. And it's not really, that's not revered by like real people who are doing shit, but there's this stupid attitude that's like pervasive in indie rock, which is just like this whole fucking slacker, too cool to try.
Pervasive
it's a bunch of bullshit.
Independent films too.
Yeah,
and that is the same people that we're comparing. That is what we're comparing. Vivarium's an independent film. Yeah. Saying that Palm Springs isn't an independent film isn't fair, because it was made on a very low budget. But this was a film that was, it was made on a bigger budget than Vivarium was. Like Vivarium, just by looking at it, you can tell like it was made kind of on the cheap. I mean, it's all takes place in one house.
I didn't necessarily get that. I got...
Or smaller budget, just... But Palm Springs, I mean, one, you have Andy Samberg, and you have like a lot of pretty well-known people. J.K. Simmons is in it. J.K. Simmons is also fantastic. He's
awesome.
In it.
Dude, he's great.
He's great in everything.
He's fucking great. Like he never. I shared an elevator with him when I stayed in L.A. in 2011 with our cousin Katie. I guess he lived in the building as well, or whatever. He was there, but he's. That's just. I got to bring that up.
He knocks it out of the park in every performance, and I love about him is just like every kind of performance he has, you can tell he's having fun with it. He's going 100% all out. He goes all out 100% with this character.
And it's a fucking awesome character.
The character he plays has kind of been trapped in this time loop, and he's mad at Andy Samberg for it and has kind of been hunting him down for, we don't know like really how long they've been in there, years probably. Basically hunting him down as revenge, and he goes all out. And it's another thing too about the performance difference between these two movies is like in Palm Springs, everyone goes all out. Everyone's performance is to the top, while in Vivarium, every performance is kind of muted.
Well, not the child and the wife.
Not the child. Well, the child, no. The wife, kind of, like...
Really, the only muted person to me is Jesse Eisenberg, and that's just because he's a fucking muted person.
I feel like just knowing that actress, you could have gotten so much more from her.
Okay.
I felt like she was very held back, and I feel like that's a choice.
Okay, you spent the first part of this episode talking about how you thought she was actually one of the good performances.
No. She is one of the good performances, but I thought it wasn't. It was held back.
Yeah,
it wasn't as good as it could have been.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't a great movie.
No, and it's not a great movie. Another thing about. We talked about like Vivarium's trying to be deep, and Palm Springs is trying to be hopeful, but there is a cultural difference of just like Americans naturally are very optimistic and hopeful people, and we kind of do as a whole, obviously not everybody,
right,
kind of look on the bright side of things and always think that things are going to be better for the future. And for most of the world, their mindset is not like that.
What do you mean? Most of the world?
I would say American hopefulness is kind of unique to our country. I mean, you can't say there's not such thing as like American optimism of like we're always looking on the bright side, and just looking at foreign films in general, they're typically more depressing than American films.
Yeah, you would know more than me.
I mean, American films, you pretty much have to put a happy ending on it, or some producer is going to make you put a happy ending on it, because American audiences do not like movies that that have endings that are a bummer.
Except for recently, I guess.
Except for kind of recently. Well, maybe just because of the pandemic, because of streaming, there's not as much like producer pushback.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, because even the movies that we're talking about, their endings are kind of happy. They might be sad throughout the entire thing, but like...
Vivarium's not a happy ending.
No, well, Vivarium's not an American film.
Oh, yeah. The director's Irish, too?
The director is Irish. Lorcan Finnegan. He's from Dublin, yes. Yeah, I mean... Palm Springs I love. That's a movie, like... I pretty much have suggested to everybody, where it is a movie where everyone's gonna like. I haven't suggested Vivarium to anyone. Anyone who just has a Hulu subscription, I'm just like, you will like this movie.
Yeah,
it's
fun.
It's in my top 5 favorite movies of the year.
It's fun. It's a fun movie.
Yeah, but
I always like Sandberg, man. He's good.
Have you seen the Never Stop, Never Stopping?
No.
It's Andy Samberg as basically a fictionalized Justin Bieber. He's playing this dude Connor for real. It's fucking hysterical. It is so funny. All the dudes from Lonely Island are in it. Like all the dudes from SNL are in it, and it is so great. One of like the first movies he was in, I think it was like 2010. It's called Hot Rod.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Really?
Like Bill Hader. So many just like guys when they weren't so much famous are in it, and it's kind of got this independent feel of like it's absurd and it's weird, but it's done in a fun way, while like Vivarium is absurd and weird, but it's done in a depressing way.
Right.
I think is hilarious. I don't think Andy Samberg had any. He didn't have anything to do with the writing of this movie.
He was just an actor.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, he probably. I mean, it says Lonely Island Productions in the beginning, so he probably had some producing credit. A lot of times, just like big named actors, they'll just want their production company in there.
Yeah.
They'll want some sort of production credit.
Well, they'll probably be like, yeah, it was like, I was hired on behalf of.
Yeah.
He's representing.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that.
This movie is great. I think it was supposed to premiere on Hulu, and I don't know how this movie would have done in theaters, honestly.
If the world was normal?
Yeah. If it was, I mean, I think it was always trying to go to Hulu.
Back in the day, these movies used to fucking tear it up.
If this movie came out in 2005, it would have torn it up.
Absolutely.
But today,
it came out in like July, June.
Yeah, but today you're not getting that anymore.
I don't get why. I don't understand. I mean, me personally, I don't understand really action or superhero shit. Like that just does nothing for me aside from Batman.
Okay, so there's two kind of reasons why. One, movie tickets are expensive now, and a lot of people, if they're going to see a movie, they're gonna see the big budget ones.
Why don't they figure that out? Why would so much? What's a ticket now? $20?
It's at least 15, 17 maybe.
Why would they do that when obviously
because so many people get a cut. So many people get a cut, and movies are so expensive now
to make.
They're so expensive to make, yeah.
And
the smaller budget movies people don't see.
All right, but who's getting a cut when it goes to Netflix?
Well, that's why a lot of the smaller budget movies are going to Netflix. That's why the comedies are going to Netflix and to streaming. Because Netflix is getting all the money.
That still doesn't explain why people aren't going to see comedies. Because if people are still paying that ticket price.
Because if they're going to pay the ticket price, they're going to want like one of the bigger budget movies. If they're saying I'm going to spend $17, then I better see the Avengers with Robert Downey Jr. and all this crazy stuff on the screen than, a romantic comedy with two people.
But that still doesn't explain.
And it's also just like the superhero movies are always beating out the comedies, and you're getting a new one every week. That's draining up all of the...
Every week?
Yeah, pretty much. A new one's coming out every week.
Every week?
Or at least like a established property.
They're really putting shit out at that rate?
Yes. At least like an established property.
That's fucking scary.
So like something that already has a market to it. So like something like Harry Potter or something like Fast and the Furious... or, a Marvel or a DC. That's what would be called an established property. And those movies are always going to win because people who, or like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something, characters that they already recognize, they're going to go to that movie more. You can't really have an established property with a romantic comedy unless it's a reboot.
Why would, like, and I think I know your answer is going to be because he at that point was an established commodity or whatever the term is. But why would like a Blades of Glory tear up a movie theater? I don't know how it did.
Well, that was years ago.
Okay, but my point is why then? Because superhero movies,
because you didn't have all these established established property movies coming out
at this rate.
Yes, at this rate. Now you have one coming out pretty much every week. You have a Harry Potter or a Transformers or a Fast and the Furious or whatever coming out pretty much every week. And those are the movies that are going to eat up all the market, or a Star Wars or something. Yeah. Someone with like a universe or characters that people already recognize, that's the movies that they're going to see. And you can't really have recognizable characters with a comedy, you know? And that's why all the comedies are going to streaming. I also like this is a lot of speculation. I mean, it's like educated speculation, but like the fact of the matter is, like, people don't know why certain movies do really well and others don't. Like, it's marketing has something to do with it, and people might have just saw your movie and thought it was a dud, or word of mouth or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, like, comedy doing in theaters is very risky now because it's very hard to really make money off of it. It's much easier to just do a smaller budget comedy, do a few film festivals, and then hope like a Netflix or a Hulu is going to buy it.
And then if you get that offer, you're basically going to take it.
Pretty much. There's no reason if you have a comedy, there's no reason why not to go to streaming.
Right. At this point, yeah.
All
right, what do you think?
So, yeah, while Palm Springs was probably my favorite movie of the year, there's a good chance I never would have seen it if it was in theaters. I mean...
Well, it's not even worth thinking about that because theaters weren't a thing this year anyway.
Yeah, true. Though, Tenet, the Christopher Nolan movie, they tried doing a wide release in theaters.
When?
Recently. This was probably like a month ago it came out, and huge failure.
Well, no
massive
shit.
Failure. Christopher Nolan was very much just like, no, I made my movie to be seen in theaters, so we're going to release it in theaters. And it's just like, we can let 5 people in the theater at once, right?
I mean,
and massive failure.
Well, duh. Though.
Yeah.
Who greenlit that?
I don't know who greenlit it, but it was done.
So now can a streaming service still buy it and put it out?
Probably, yeah.
Because, like, no one's fucking saw it.
Yeah.
Or is it like a lot of times in music, they'll be like, oh, it already came out. You can't re-release it.
No, you can.
Yeah.
If something left theaters, then you can put it on. Then you can sell it to.
But it wouldn't be
where HBO or Netflix.
They won't make as much money as if they held it and went directly to them, right? Probably.
No, because it costs so much money you're already losing so much money on putting it into theaters. If you're putting it into theaters, you have to spend a lot more on marketing too, on advertising and stuff than you would if you were putting it to streaming.
I mean, I'm sure.
So
I wonder what I wonder what that difference is, because they're but you still have to market a movie. You have to do so much more advertising for theaters to get people out of their fucking
if
houses.
People already have Netflix, they're going to watch your movie.
Yeah, that's true. If you could get it on the homepage or something.
It's a lot more advertising to get somebody to leave their house to drive to the movie theater and to pay the ticket fee to go get it. It takes a lot more advertising. It costs a lot more money.
That makes sense. I'm just curious as to what the actual difference is.
I mean, I don't know specifically. I mean, if you're releasing something in theaters, it has to make at least double its money to cut even. at least double its budget to cut even, just
because of all the expenses.
All the expensive advertising. The theater is taking a cut of it. If it's a Marvel movie, if it's a big budget one where they spend way more on advertising than anybody else, it's 3 times its budget.
What percentage of a movie's budget will they spend on advertising? Like as much?
Yeah, usually as much.
Really?
For a big one, yeah. For an Avengers, they probably spend more on advertising than they spend on the actual movie. Yeah. All right, so another reason why, and this is kind of like the real reason why you're not getting movies and comedies in theaters as much, is overseas markets of
China,
of Japan, of Avengers or Transformers, a robot blowing stuff up. That's universal in every language. Something like Palm Springs, 1, you need to know the language to get the jokes, and 2, you kind of have to know American culture a bit to think the jokes are funny.
Yeah.
You know? And
China,
that's the real reason why, because modern day, the name of the game is overseas markets.
Well, and they also have specific endings for China, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much they would have had to like edit Palm Springs. You know, some of the gay jokes they or like, you know, because in Palm Springs, it's like, you know, hinted at that Andy Samberg is bisexual. Well, no, it's not hinted at. It's like directly said that he's bisexual. And that for China, they would probably have had to have edited out.
They may have like just disappeared, like the head of Alibaba, Jack Ma, he's like the Jeff Bezos of China. Like he spoke out again.
I didn't know the guy's name, but yes, I've heard about that, of just like this of basically the Chinese billionaire who got abducted by the government. And I
don't know if it's confirmed, because then they put out something that he wasn't, but he was just laying low.
But they were like, this is the richest guy in China. It's basically like if the U.S. government had kidnapped Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap this up.
Which they should.
China, let's go.
All right, this has been Movies by McManus. Palm Springs, everybody would like it's pretty mass appeal. I think anybody who's watching this or just likes movies in general,
it's good. It's worth it.
Vivarium, like, I'm not telling you not to watch it. I'm telling you know to expect. Know that I didn't like it. Know that it's a lot of like this fake deep stuff.
Fake deep bullshit.
If you want a weird movie, then do it.
Way too long and drawn out.
If you
like watching the same thing for an hour and a half and people screaming and like fake deep shit, then check it out by all means.
And also a bunch of Proud Boys attacked the Capitol building, so that also happened today.
Also, I just want to say thank you for downloading the show, because we do notice the YouTube is a little lacking in love, but we're working on that. We're building a consistent output there, so hopefully YouTube catches on. But on the podcast side, which the episodes get uploaded as a podcast too.
Yeah.
The support on the downloads has been pretty cool. We had like 150 downloads for December.
Cool.
So that's nice. So thank you for listening.
Yeah.
We're just getting started here. We've been going a few months, obviously, but as far as other shows are concerned, we're still, in our infancy, so we don't really have any competition. We're just doing this for fun. But appreciate the support, so thank you. Don't be afraid to leave a comment or a review, you know what I mean? Let's get some interaction going on.
Let's do it.
Find us on Instagram at Movies by McManus, Twitter at Movies by McManus. We're also on Facebook. And like I said, thank you for the support. It means a lot. But get in touch. We're not rock stars. We're chilling. So leave a comment. Don't be afraid. Introduce yourself. We know you're listening because we see it on the back end. But I'm telling people, like, leave a comment. I don't leave fucking comments on podcasts.
I don't know.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm the same way. I don't even go so far as to download them. So you're taking that step. So we appreciate it. Just say what's up. How you doing? Hey, how you doing?
All right. This has been Movies by McManus. I'm your host, Greg. Vivarium in Palm Springs. I'm with Mike, and everybody have a good night.
Don't storm the Capitol building.
Don't storm the Capitol.
If you don't want to get shot.
It's too late for a warning about that.
R.I.P. to that lady.
Yeah. Yes.
Peace.
Peace.